Yo. Yo, guys. Let's see. Ooh. Hello? Dang, was my mic on this whole time? Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my stream. Yoo-hoo. Alright. Wow, hello Moonies. It is I, Moonlight-chan, and tonight we're doing a live reading of one of our favorite novels, The Control of Candy Jones. Woo. And thank you for joining to my stream on YouTube and Twitch. Woo! Alright, so before I begin, I would like to surmise this is a biography of a famous model in the 1940s by the name of Jessica Wilcox. Even though she was nationally famous as a model, she suffered debilitating mental conditions such as a split personality, a fragmented memory, as well as secretly working for the government unknowingly. If you're into conspiracy theories like I am, it sounds like Jessica's case is a clear example of MKUltra mind control. As of now, the biography doesn't state how Jessica's personality was so fragmented, but if you research on MKUltra, the victim underwent traumatic abuse, physical, mental, emotional. That way their personality is fragmented and easily controllable. Basically, it's a Manchurian candidate. And even though the MKUltra mind control program has been divulged from the White House, for all we know, it could still be continuing, unbeknownst to the public. Now join me as I continue reading the biography of Jessica Wilcox and her fragmented personality, which is named Candy Jones. Throughout this series, you'll see Jessica's abnormal behavior as her personality switches, as well as her marriage with her second husband, who goes by the name Long John Neville. I don't know much about Neville, but he actually ran his own radio soap during the 1950s and the 1970s. And he even talked about conspiracy theories. Shit, maybe I can find those on YouTube someday. Who knows? I won't go into too much detail, but Neville, he died of cancer, and so did Candy Jones in the early 1990s. Honestly, I just wish we had more details about Jessica's case. And honestly, I'm surprised her biography isn't more renowned. But I digress. Let's continue the story. Now let me tell you. After the stream, please watch part 1. The first few chapters divulge into Jessica's early childhood. Basically, even though she came from an upper middle class by early 1900s standards, well, her father abandoned her when she was young, and she's had a rocky relationship with her mother, who was very controlling, practically abusive to poor Jessica. But don't worry, little Jessica formed a strong bond with her grandma, which she called Nana, or Mama, I believe. Sorry, it's been a while since I read the novel, but I really want to continue it. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Thank you, Moonies. Oof. Alright, let's see. We left off with chapter 5. And YouTube, what is wrong with you? I hope you guys can hear me. Wait. Jeez. Alright. This Twitch looks okay, and so does Restream. And YouTube, why are you frozen? Refresh. Hello, new viewer, what's up? Yoo-hoo! Alright, chapter 5, the first tape. The marriage between Candy Jones and Long John Neville moved smoothly through the first 5 months of 1973. Neville's all-night show on the WMCA prospered, becoming New York's top-rated program in the time slot. This came as no surprise to anyone, for he'd enjoyed the same success on both previous stations, WOR and WNBC. Wow, back then you get to talk about conspiracy theories on WNBC. Shit, I wish I seen that growing up. Alright. There was a difference, however, in the way he viewed his success on his new station. At WNBC, Neville had become disenchanted with management, particularly after a new managerial team had been brought in to bolster the station's overall sagging ratings. The new bosses decided to try to capture the rock music market, and began to come down heavily on Neville to alter his approach to better appeal to that music's audience. He balked, which led to his departure from WNBC. So basically, WNBC tried to appeal to the satanic losers in the metal fandom, and Long John Neville wasn't having it. Pretty cool guy. John Neville's style had always been freewheeling, with 6 hours a night within which to stretch out. He enjoyed a rambling, casual approach that his many listeners had responded favorably to over the years. That isn't to say that he ran the show That isn't to say that he ran a slow, uninspired program. To the contrary, the typical Neville show was a spark-filled, electric experience. His knack for probing a guest's hidden weaknesses was legendary in broadcasting. Fledgling announcers at broadcasting schools around the country played tapes of Neville Fledgling announcers at broadcasting schools announced around the country were played tapes of Neville's shows as part of their course studies. He was the acknowledged master of the controversial interview, although he credited the man who so led into his at WNMCA, Barry Gray, with being the finest interviewer in radio. Sorry about that. Neville's guests ran a gamut of interests, and he participated at their peril. Neville could spot a phony before he ever began questioning him, and it was not unusual for a guest to storm from the studio in a rage over what he considered unfair and overly harsh treatment by the show's host. At times it was unfair, although from Neville's viewpoint, anything that contributed to the success of the show was justified. There was a time when Neville's producer would approach a guest as he or she sat in the waiting room and ask casually, while the guest was signing release forms, whether there were any ideas of discussing. The guest would prefer to avoid. A hidden microphone carried the answer to Neville, listening in another room. The moment the red light came on in the studio, the guest could count on that forbidden area of discussion, being the basis for Neville's very first question. Throughout his career, John Neville stirred controversy. He was hated by many listeners who resented in his grating, often vicious handling of guests for whom they felt an affinity, and they railed against his handling of these guests when they called in during their open telephone segments of the program. Oh, so he was kind of like Howard Stern, but without the crudeness or the obscenity. Did I digress? Alright, let's see. Still, they listened, a faithful flock for whom the Neville voice was an integral part of their families. Neville knew his following was solid, and it was for that reason he chose to structure his deal at WMCA along the lines of Barry Gray's arrangement with the station. No salary, but 50% of all advertising revenues generated by his show. Damn. Sounds like a bad deal. But whatever. Within months, Neville was making more money than he ever made at WNBC or WOR, and his salary at WNBC had been in excess of $100,000 a year. Sponsors were turned away for lack of time to accommodate them, and now John Neville's financial base was solid, a satisfying situation for a man who had been happy to earn $1 or $2 on the streets of New York in his youth, selling orange juice extractors to whatever crowd he could gather around him. Candy's financial fortunes were not as solid. She was, by her own admission, a poor businesswoman. Her charming career schools, respected fixtures in the modeling field, were not profitable. Neville suggested she close the schools and join him on the show. She agreed, and Neville's attorneys and accountants instituted the long and involved process of phasing out her business activities. Candy shifts in mood that had so upset John still occurred, although never with enough regularity or intensity to create an open rift between them. They were both extremely busy and saw little past friends. Can you imagine your marriage partner suffering from personality swings? I mean, it'd be pretty jarring. I gotta commend John Neville and Candy for staying so long together. Really. After all, any young couple in today would probably split up after the first month. Seriously, what's up with the younger generation? Honestly, I blame no fault divorce in Burgerland. Alright. According to Neville, the only real anxiety in their lives at that juncture was the result of Candy's worsening insomnia. She simply could not sleep. Despite an increasing need for it, she was living a double shift, days grappling with the myriad of problems in her business, nights as a part of her husband's life. She was exhausted, but attempts at sleep resulted in shallow, restless cat naps, no matter what the hour. On Sunday morning, June 3rd, 1973, John and Candy returned to their apartment from WMCA. She'd been co-hosting the show on a regular basis since May, and was still involved in the phasing out of her own businesses. She tried to sleep that morning, but according to Nebel, just tossed and turned in a double bed in a cramped bedroom. Her face was drawn and dark circles beneath her eyes caused them to appear sunken. She was near tears as she sat up in bed and told her husband of the effect her fatigue was having upon her. Nebel offered to help. How? Asked Candy. I'll hypnotize you. She forced a laugh. I can't be hypnotized, John. Well, let me try. I've never done it before, but I think I can do it. It'll just be to relax you, like meditation. Although he had never before attempted to induce a hypnotic trance in anyone, Nebel was confident he could accomplish it because of his extensive reading on the subject. But he had apprehensions about putting theory into practice. He knew, of course, that his friends in the medical profession who practice hypnosis frown upon anyone dabbling in the science without solid medical grounding. He also knew, however, that unless a hypnotist deliberately used the trance to accomplish mischief, as his friend Dr. Herbert Spiegel, psychiatrist and associate professor at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons, prefers to term it, little harm could befall the subject. Even though I believe in mind over matter, I'm pretty dubious about hypnotism. I don't think I could be hypnotized, but maybe, yeah, I can see other people being subjected to hypnotism, and especially if they're put under a heavy trance, or if they're easily influenced. After all, society is influenced by the media. Am I right, folks? Well, in the grand scheme of things, at least John Nebel didn't resort to using pills for Candy. Now that would be ironic. The situation of the moment was certainly conducive to successful trance induction. Candy was and is a suggestible person, and much of her business failure resulted from this personality trait. She had great faith in her husband, an extremely helpful requisite for anyone practicing hypnosis. Most important, Nebel did not attempt to manipulate her while in a trance. He intended only to induce relaxation, the most common benefit from hypnosis, particularly self-hypnosis, and further intended to employ an induction technique called progressive relaxation. There are as many induction techniques as there are hypnotists. The scientific community prefers to call hypnotists operators. Mind operators, as I like to say. But the term hypnotist will be used throughout this book. Progressive relaxation, in which the hypnotist suggests that each part of the body is going into a relaxed state, is a favorite method of lay hypnotists who conduct clinics for smoking and weight control. Physicians seldom use it because of the length of time it takes to induce the trance. Other methods, which will be explained at various stages in this book, are faster and in general more effective. Nebel's only goal, however, was to relax his wife and help her sleep. Although this first session with Candy and the two that followed shortly thereafter were not taped. Nebel recreated the induction process for me late in 1974, and I taped it. During the first session with Candy, they were both in bed. All lights in the bedroom were out because John wasn't sure whether lights would inhibit the trance. They would not have, and most subsequent sessions were done with at least one light burning in the room. The following is a verbatim transcript of John Nebel's simulated trance induction. My comments appear in brackets. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think of your forehead, and I want you to relax your forehead. You are going into a deep, relaxing, natural sleep. He gently places his fingertips on her forehead, and then on her eyelids. Touching can be used to focus attention on those areas of the body that are being relaxed. I want you to relax the muscles around your mouth. Places his fingertips on her mouth. And now I want you to relax your cheekbones. It is necessary to touch only the initial body areas. There is no further touching involved. And now your neck. I want you to relax your neck muscles. And then your right shoulder. The feeling of relaxation is traveling down to your elbow, down to your wrist, right down to your fingertips. And now we will do the same thing with your left arm. Relax, deep, pleasant relaxation. Deeper and deeper. You're going into a deep, deep, relaxing natural sleep. Deeper and deeper. And now I want you to relax your abdomen and your hips. Relax, relax. Neville commented that Candy shifted in bed to feel more relaxed in her abdominal and pelvic areas. And now your legs all the way down to your feet and to your toes, each toe becoming more and more relaxed. Neville's voice throughout is calm and natural, flat in tone. And now your whole body is completely relaxed. And I want you to think about floating on a puffy white cloud on a hot summer's day. Magnificent blue sky, the sun beating down on your body. You're resting deeper and deeper, drowsier and drowsier and drowsier. These words were said deliberately or were elongated. Deep, deep, relaxing, natural sleep. And now I'm going to lift your left arm. Hold on a minute. Oh, thank you for the like. Let's see. Neville had observed that Candy's breathing had become slow and regular, one sign that a trance state had been entered to. He knew at last that a state of relaxation had been achieved. But he wished to test further, and decided to see whether her trance was sufficiently deep for him to suggest limb catalepsy. That is, the hypnotist suggests that the subject's arm, for example, that it is rigid and cannot be moved without permission of the hypnotist. If a trance has been induced, the subject should accept such a suggestion. Neville placed his fingers around the wrist of her left arm and raised it above her. Now that I've lifted your arm, you find that it is becoming rigid and wishes to stay in a raised position. You cannot lower it. It is impossible for you to lower your arm. It is rigid and will stay in its present position. I am going to count from 3 down to 1, and when I reach 1, you will find it impossible to put your arm down. 3, you're going deeper and deeper into a relaxed natural sleep. Deeper and deeper. 2, your arm is becoming more and more rigid. Deeper and deeper. 1, put your arm down. Neville could feel the muscles tighten in Candy's arm as he exerted pressure to lower it. It remained above her, however. I'm now going to allow you to lower your arm. In fact, your arm is now so relaxed, it is impossible for you to hold it above you. Well, I wonder if it's possible you can hypnotize yourself. Well, I kind of think so. I mean, come on, it's just called motivation. Hello, new viewer, what's up? Thank you for joining my reading stream. Woo! What's your name? I'm Moonlight-chan, and nice to meet you. Alright. Relax. Deep, deep relaxation. You can now hold your arm above you. Candy's arm came down. Neville lifted it, but it simply fell to the bed each time he took his hand from it. And now you have reached the state of deep, relaxing, natural sleep. You are sound asleep, and when you awaken, your body will be completely relaxed. No tension, no problems, just deep, relaxing, natural sleep. Your body floating on a white cloud in a blue sky, the warmth of the sun beating down on you, deeper and deeper. And when you awaken, you will be refreshed, relaxed, and rejuvenated. Neville allowed her to remain in a trance, and to eventually drift into a natural sleep state. Cease. Sorry about that. What is up with my voice? Cease. This first attempt at hypnosis by John Neville was an unqualified success. and he was heady with satisfaction. Oh, hello. Hey, Smack Lord. Woo! Oh, hey, thanks for joining my stream. Oh, you thought I can complete the dishes in under 10 minutes? Oh, well, dude, don't rush cleaning dishes, alright? You need to scrub all the bacteria out from it. Okay, dude? Thanks for joining my stream. So sit back and relax and enjoy the reading stream. Woo! He succeeded in helping Candy achieve her first full night's sleep in months, and had proven he was capable of inducing a trance. He didn't give any thought to the fact that despite her assertion that she couldn't be hypnotized, she proved to be a good subject. Estimates vary, but it is commonly held that approximately 70% of the population is capable of entering the trance state in varying depths. Not to divulge from the story, but considering, subliminal messages can put, humans like us into an alpha trance state, it's no wonder people can fall for propaganda, especially from the media, in Hollywood, in the government. Trust no one, Moonies. Inducing only relaxed natural sleep, as did Nebel in his experiment with Candy, is one of the reasons a hypnotic subject needn't fear what would occur should the hypnotist disappear or die following trance induction, a common fear of neophyte subjects. In almost all cases, the subject will simply pass from the hypnotic trance into the natural sleep mode and will awaken a normal number of hours later shocked, perhaps as seeing a dead hypnotist at his feet, but no worse for the trance experience. Cease. Had John Nebel been prudent in hypnotizing Candy, he had no formal training, either in hypnosis or, more important, in psychology and psychiatry. You know, when it comes to psychiatry and psychology, honestly, I don't really trust those two practices, really. First of all, I read somewhere that psychologists and therapists are also mentally insane. And furthermore, between this experiment with John Nebel and Candy, it's obvious he will fall asleep. She trusts her husband. And in terms of psychology and psychiatry, since you talk with your loved ones about your problems rather than to some stranger, maybe that's why the hypnotizing word works. Because John Nebel and Candy were married and they loved each other. Cease. But anyway, let's continue. Alright, Smacklord, you said, is it possible to control dreams or be awake in sleep? Well, that's called lucid dreaming, I believe, when you're fully aware you're in a dream. I've never experienced a lucid dream, or I can't remember it. What about you, chat? Have you ever had a lucid dream before? He did not, of course, intend to delve in such weighty waters. His original goal was only to encourage general relaxation, and he hoped sleep. But this well-intentioned use of hypnosis by John Nebel was soon to turn into a much more profound and tricky situation. Candy began to spontaneously age regress during subsequent sessions. This provocative phenomenon of hypnosis, which can occur only in those subjects with an extremely high trance capacity, is best left to the professionals. Let's see. Smacklord, you said, you don't know, but sugar before sleep makes me dream sometimes. Ooh. Well, rainy weather makes me sleepy too. For some reason. Alright. That is not to say a non-professional such as John Nebel is capable of fostering age regression in a good subject. To be more correct, it is the subject who fosters the regression to times and places in the past. The non-professional hypnotist is often nothing more than an interested bystander, while the subject does his or her thing. Such was the case with the age regressions experienced by Candy and recorded by John over the many months of their adventure with hypnosis. Okay, as I said earlier, this sounds like a clear case of MKUltra mind control. And well, when it comes to rich families, especially the elite, those families have a tendency to abuse children early on, so they can develop to be cold, ambivalent psychopaths. Really. And I believe inducing split personalities is a form of controlling someone. So, since Candy came from a well-to-do family, well, she must have been secretly abused that she can't remember it in her traumatized mind. And that's probably the result of her fragmented personality, as well as her age regression. But I digress. Let's continue. Woo! Jeez. Let's see. Such was the case with the age regressions experienced by Candy and recorded by John over the many months of their adventure with hypnosis. In a medical setting in which a physician uses age regression as part of his treatment strategy, there is a more structured approach, one in which the physician, usually a psychiatrist, applies very specific techniques and principles in order to direct a patient's flow of regression in an attempt to reach repressed memories considered vital by the psychiatrist. I asked Dr. Herbert Spiegel, one of the nation's leading experts in hypnosis and age regressions, who wrote the foreword to this book, whether a trained professional in hypnosis, particularly a psychiatrist, might have been more effective in retrieving the information from Candy that forms the core of the book. I like to mention that Spiegel, well, I believe it's a German last name as well as a surname to another race and ethnicity with the small hat. Oy vey. Yes, Maclord, really. Probably, responded Spiegel. I would prefer to have seen a professional deal with Candy, someone detached from the situation, and who perhaps would have been more selective in following and directing the regressions. There might have been less inadvertent cues given by the hypnotist in a more detached, structured exploration. Also, a professional has a repertoire of corrective actions, so the subject experiences an abreaction, which is an unexpected emotional outburst. This is the most compelling reason why highly hypnotizable people need protection from non-professional intervention. But Spiegel went on to comment about the time and money factors which would have virtually ruled out the use of professional throughout the many months of hypnotic sessions with Candy. There now exists over 200 hours of tape taken during her age regressions. I wonder, where are those tapes? I really wish I could listen to them. I wonder, did someone close to Candy or John Nebo or Dr. Herbert Spiegel ever upload them onto the internet? I really want to search for those tapes. I hope I can find them. I suppose you could view it as a trade-off of sorts, said Spiegel. John's intense interest and patience in pursuing this project was necessary if such an abundance of material was to be gained. He was with Candy day and night, an impossible task for any outsider. You know what, chat? I never mentioned this before, but I ordered this book after New Year's once I saw a picture of it on 4chan. Really, guys, really. So yeah, 4chan is very useful, especially when discussing conspiracy theories. Alright. It was suggested by the publisher during the recent republication phase of this project that an outside psychiatrist attempt to retrieve some of the material recorded by John Nebel during Candy's age regressions. Dr. Spiegel was asked about the potential value of such an experiment. To do it properly at this stage would take exorbitant amounts of time and money, was Spiegel's response. It would have to be done over a prolonged period of time, seized, and may or may not be fruitful. And to do a brief sampling regression when Candy would prove nothing. Any outside professional hypnotist would probably recover much the same material, valid and invalid, that has already come out and been recorded by John. There is, of course, a question of propriety regarding John's continuing use of hypnosis with Candy, particularly after the success began to result in her age regressions. Let me explain it this way, comments Dr. Spiegel. If someone does an appendectomy on a kitchen table and it works, you have to recognize that it worked. But such an experience should not become the model for all appendectomies. In case you don't know, an appendectomy is the removal of the appendicitis. I believe the appendicitis is near your pancreas and your stomach. Yeah. Let's see. That John Nebel was able to gather so much recorded information during Candy's regressions is to not become the model for similar adventures with others. Spiegel's final comments regarding the value of bringing an outside psychiatrist reflect, to some extent, his own extensive experience as a consultant to various law enforcement agencies, including the FBI. He recently went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he hypnotized some of the surviving patients of the Michigan Veterans Administration Hospital, in which 11 patients had died of respiratory arrest. It was suspected that someone on the hospital staff had injected the dead patients with Pavilon, a variant of the lethal South American plant toxin, curare. Dr. Spiegel hypnotized one patient, who, while in a trance state, recalled events in the ward that were not remembered during the prior questioning of him and in a non-trance state. Based upon this information, the FBI was able to expand the scope of its investigation, and eventually 2 suspects were named, both nurses. But to be fair, the alphabet organizations are unconstitutional. Smack Lord, you said you baked cupcakes yesterday? Oh, sweet dude. What kind of frosting did you use? That sounds yummy. Not the EDP 45 type. Oh, that's nice. Well, I hope your family's doing okay too, dude. And so is your business. The point is, says Spiegel, the information recovered through the use of hypnosis is not in and itself legally valid. What it is, however, is a further broadening of potential areas in which to seek external validation. In the Michigan VA hospital case, it gave the FBI more material with which to work. The incredible amount of material recorded by John Nebel while Candy was in the hypnotic mode should be viewed in the same way. You know, I should research into that Michigan VA hospital case. I mean, that sounds so abnormal. Who would kill a bunch of veterans through poisoning them, through injections? But then again, there's always been cases of nurses who are angels of death. Let's see, Smack Lord, you made the cupcakes with combined margarine with the icing sugar and then left with the other icing package and butter. Alright, cool, dude, cool. Huh. Maybe one day I should do a cooking stream. Would you like that, chat? Let's see. Smack Lord, not the Mango guy, he was just blamed for fake history. Oh, Dr. Mangala? Yeah, I don't believe the mainstream info on the Yahtzees. And after all, didn't Dr. Mangala discover hypothermia? Like, come on. And also, do you really believe a scientist would sew up two twins for some weird fucked up chimera? Like he's Dr. Tucker from Full Metal Alchemist? Like, come on. Like, who would do that? What doctor would do that? What would be the point of sewing twins together? Like, really? Really, nigga? You really believe in a electrical masturbation machines and a human soap and a roller coasters of death and a human lampshades? Like, come on, really? Let's see, Smack Lord, your grandparents were lampshades and nose pizzas. But got together somehow and made my father. Oh, really? I wonder, did your family ever grow up in South America? No, wait, you're not German. How the hell did your family end up in Australia? Oh, and sorry about that last comment. I didn't mean to dox you. Oh, you're not ethically Jewish, you're just making a joke. Oh, okay, dude. Well, that's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing. You're not prone to schizophrenia. Yeah, that is true. There's a study out there that states that the so-called chosen people have the genetics for schizophrenia and other mental disorders due to their families of consanguineous marriages in the past, aka marriages between first cousins. But hey, let's continue. You have a friend who is 1/8. And does your friend always try to borrow your money? Just saying. Alright. Let's see. The tapes contain a rich field from which to draw leads for the continuing investigation of her past. I'm pleased that such investigation is taking place. I asked Dr. Spiegel whether he was surprised that a non-professional such as John Nebel would have gained so much material from Candy, excuse me, whilst he was under hypnosis. Not at all, he replied. Most trance states, especially in someone's when Candy's demonstrated high trance capacity, occur spontaneously anyway. Lovers go into a trance. It's not termed that because there wasn't a third party around to label the experience. One of the biggest myths about hypnosis is that all the power rests within the hypnotist. That's not true. The trance capacity is carried through life by the subject. Candy is one of perhaps 5% of the population, but with an extremely heightened capacity for trance. In fact, when dealing in a therapeutic situation with such patients, the problem is not one of inducing trance, but of teaching the patient how to avoid going into spontaneous trances in their daily life, aka the pre-alpha state, from what I've heard. Nebo repeated the experience the following morning after they returned from WMCA, and again after a few days. It was on his third attempt that he encountered something more than simple progressive relaxation. During the session, Candy began talking in a strange voice, not the harsh, grating voice of the other person that had jarred Nebo on his wedding night and on subsequent occasions, but that of a child. She engaged in an imaginary dialogue with an unnamed person, and Nebel, acting on instinct, slipped into the verbal role of that other person. The conversation between them lasted only a few minutes, but when it was over and Candy was sleeping soundly, Nebel, as reported in a March 22, 1976 issue of Time. Nebel went to the living room, lighted a cigarette, and pulled out one of his many books on hypnosis. Turning to a chapter on age regression, he began to read. He didn't know whether what had just happened in their bedroom was significant or not, but he did know that his wife had, for a few moments, moved backward in time. He was interested and wanted to learn more in case this would happen again. It did. Candy's next regression to childhood occurred on June 15, 1973. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment too. That's what the book said. Subscribe to our main channel, Moonlight Artist. And on this YouTube channel too, Moonlight Live, and our Let's Play channel, Moonlight Gaming. Woohoo! Oh, and on our fourth channel too, Moonlight Manga. By that time, a series of non-childhood regressions far more dramatic and bizarre had occurred, prompting Nebel to purchase, from his friend Irving Miller of Bryce Audio, a Sony TC-142 cassette tape recorder. Nebel chose this particular machine because, besides its versatile features, it was small enough to fit into the headboard of their bed. He began recording selected hypnotic sessions, one of which was the June 15th regression to childhood. Cease. It took place approximately 8 a.m. They done the show, and Candy asked John to help her relax. She still didn't believe she was being hypnotized, preferring to chalk up her recent successful attempts at sleep to just being relaxed. Her reaction is common. Many people undergo hypnosis and later refuse to believe they were hypnotized. These people will do almost anything suggested by the hypnotist, and after being awakened, insist they only did what they did to please the hypnotist. While that may be true, it points up exactly what hypnosis is, a level of heightened concentration and suggestibility. It is no more mysterious than that, and those who expect bizarre or tangible evidence of having been in a trance will forever be disappointed, and they will continue to please the hypnotist. On that Friday morning, Nebel again put Candy into a relaxed state, a trance, and moments later, she began to speak in the little girl's voice he heard in the earlier session. He reached up, turned on the recorder, and held the microphone close to her. "John, where are you now?" "I don't know where to go." "Where do you want to go today?" "Fishing." "Where do you think you'll go fishing?" Wait a minute. Candy, "Down by the swamp." "Who will go with you?" Candy, "Tommy." "John, who's Tommy?" Candy, "Tommy's my cat." She laughs. "You better watch him, he'll eat the fish." John, "Does Tommy like fish?" Candy, "Hee, not really." John, "He just likes to play with them." Candy, "I had to get some worms. I can't take them to the house." John, "You dig them up yourself?" John, "Do you dig them up yourself?" Candy, "Yes," whispers and sounds pleased. "I have some in my bedroom." John, laughing along with her, "Where do you have them in the bedroom?" Candy is still delighted with her secret. "Under the bed." Nebel played along with her, and they laughed together in whispers. It should be pointed out that the dialogue in this scene, as well as in all other scenes taken from hypnotic session tapes, does not flow as it might appear in the reading. It is very natural dialogue, and as such is punctuated by long pauses, sometimes as a natural result of what is being said, and sometimes because Nebel has trouble in pushing a conversation forward, or in grasping who and where he is in a given situation. Candy, "Shh, don't tell her," meaning her mother. Nebel promises he won't. He asks her what time of year is it. Candy, "July." John, "That's a lovely month." Candy laughs like a child, then following a long pause, complains of having hurt her head on a boat. It evidently was a canoe that was upside down on the shore and seeping underneath it. Oh, wow, the plot thickens. Did her head injury induce the trauma that repressed her memories and created a separate personality? Who knows? John, do you pray? Candy, sure. John, does God answer your prayers? Candy, I never heard him. John, why don't you try a little prayer to ask God to stop the pain in your head? Candy, after a very long time, during which Neville tries to get her to make up a prayer. Dear God, she laughs, make the pain go away, please. Candy then suggests that her grandmother, Mama, will get rid of the pain for her. She tells John, whose identity is unknown in this session, that everyone is asleep in the house, and that it is 6 a.m. She mentions that she has an Airedale, and John says it's the same kind of dog little orphan Annie has. She laughs at that. He then asks her what she is wearing. Candy, my ducks? No shoes. John, what's your blouse like? It's red. I wore it yesterday. Neville asks her what she wants for her birthday, but she only laughs. He then suggests that God has answered her prayer and that her headache is gone. She reluctantly agrees, and that the session is over. It had lasted 7 minutes, and Candy simply drifted into natural sleep. This this first recorded example of Candy regressing to an earlier age was a pleasant experience for both of them. John played a tape for Candy, and hearing it caused her to consciously recall having hit her head on a canoe one morning when she was a little girl. You regressed yourself, he told her. That sometimes happens under hypnosis. John laughed. No, wait. Candy laughed. It was just a dream. I wasn't hypnotized. I can't be hypnotized. John laughed too, and placed another blank cassette in the machine. Hundreds of hours later, he would not be so liberal in his use of cassettes, nor he would look forward with such anticipation to future regressions, for he soon discovered that there was more to his wife's former life than Airedales, worms, and canoes. Oh, we've reached chapter 6. Alright, chapter 6, Conovers Girl. Hey chat, I'm gonna grab some water. My throat's getting a bit dry, so we're gonna take a little break for a couple of minutes. Don't worry, we'll be right back to reading. We'll be right back. See you soon. Hey new viewers, what's up? Alright guys, we're back. Woo! And we're continuing this reading with chapter 6. Conover's Girl. Among the judges at the June 1941 Miss Atlantic City Contest, won by 16-year-old Jessica Wilcox, was John Robert Powers, the famous model agent. Following her crowning, she paid her respects to the 3-judge panel, including Powers. "You'll be hearing from me," he told her. Okay. No, wait. "You'll be hearing from me," he told her. In September of that year, young Jessica received a telegram from Powers. It read, "Would like to meet with you in my office to discuss possibility of a Chesterfield ad." Candy's mother did not respond favorably to Powers' telegram, but agreed to stop off in New York with her daughter. On their way to Boston, where over Candy's objections, she intended to enroll her in the Catherine Gibbs Secretarial School. Mrs. Wilcox decided to make the New York stopover a 2-week holiday, and on the second day in Manhattan, Candy, still known as Jessica Wilcox, visited John Robert Powers' office. After having her walk around the room for him, and after instructing her to sit in a chair with her back to him, and then turn her head to face him, he said, "You have wrinkles in your neck." "I'm sorry," she replied. "Oh, come on, man. She's 16. Cease. Sounds like a ped." Powers then launched into a cell for his school. Many contest winners come to New York and use the contest winnings to take advantage of the training I offer, he said. Candy told him that her winnings on the Miss Atlantic City contest included a wardrobe, part of which she was wearing, and $20, 16 of which were tucked in her bra. Powers sadly shook his head, and Candy anticipated the bad news. Wow, a wardrobe and $20. What a deal. "What about the Chesterfield ad?" Candy asked. "I've already booked a model for that." Candy displayed spunk for a 16-year-old in suggesting she might call the Miss Atlantic City people and inform them of the game Powers seemed to be playing. Her model threat worked, because Powers picked up the phone and instructed his secretary to allow Candy to sit in the model's waiting room for the next 2 weeks in case an order came in for her type. She thanked him profusely and took her place alongside six other models in the bullpen. That 2-week New York holiday turned into gold for Jessica Wilcox. Although John Robert Powers had nothing to do with her success, instead it was Powers' biggest competitor, Harry Conover, who launched Jessica Wilcox on a career that was to take her to the peak of the modeling field. She went to Conover's offices at the end of her second week in New York. After having achieved only 2 modeling assignments through Powers, each paying $5, her mother, furious at Jessica's vehement refusals to go to Boston and the Catherine Gibbs School, resigned herself to the inevitable decadence of her only daughter. The Conover offices were located on the 8th floor at 52 Vanderbilt Avenue and reflected their founder's expensive tastes. Conover, a handsome and meticulous man with carefully styled dark hair and dazzling green eyes, had used his stature as New York's leading male model, as well as an inherent astute public relations sense, to build his agency into a worthy rival to the Powers empire. His offices were lavishly decorated, furnished with valuable French provincial furniture, and he moved through it all with the assurance of a man born to this environment. But perhaps the most memorable aspect of Harry Conover's outward appearance was his hands. Perfect hands, model's hands, displayed through gesticulation as a buxom woman. Displayed through gesticulation as a buxom woman might display her breasts while concealing the act of display. Okay. Basically, this Harry Conover was kind of a Chad, I guess, by 1940 standards. I didn't go to the Conover agency looking for a job, Candy recalls. I promised the girl in Atlantic City that I'd look up her sister while in New York. Her sister was a model and worked out of the Conover office. The model's name was Jewel Lindsay, and she was out on an assignment when Jessica arrived. The receptionist suggested she wait in the model's reception room. Twice, the receptionist, a model herself, asked Jessica whether she would like to model. You could, you know. Jessica was confused. She felt committed to Powers, but responded to the more positive atmosphere of Conover. Her confusion disappeared an hour later, however, when a young photographer named Elliot Clark came in. After studying Jessica for what seemed an eternity, he disappeared into the inner offices. A few moments later, Jessica was asked to go in and meet Mr. Conover. Hello, I'm Jessica Wilcox, she said, extending her hand. Conover remained seated behind his desk. You're Johnson, he said. Candy Johnson, I think. Candy Johnson? Ooh. It makes you wonder, what connections does this modeling agency have? And keep in mind, Hollywood and the government are well connected together. After all, Hollywood produces the propaganda for the government. It still continues even till this day, and not just war movies. Yeah. Yes, and your rate is $5 an hour. The photographer who was just here wants a girl of your type. That was all it took. Conover wrote a letter to Powers informing him that his client would from that moment forward work for the Conover agency, and the build-up began in earnest. Conover built an entire image around the name Candy. Her new wardrobe and accessories were designed to incorporate a candy stripe design. There were matchbook covers, earrings, and even a bicycle in a red and white striped motif. Conover ordered a 10,000 steel engraved business cards in red and white, which said Candy Jones was here. Candy Johnson became Candy Jones because he couldn't remember the name Johnson and kept referring to herself as Jones, which Conover finally accepted. The cards were left all over town, in cabs, restaurants, and on receptionist's desk. Warner Brothers fell for the publicity and signed her to a contract, despite the reservations about what they considered her excessive height. She took acting and voice lessons, and soon joined the New York celebrity crowd at openings and parties. Her natural, wholesome tan beauty began appearing with regularity on magazine covers and in full-color ads for national products. One such ad for the boarding company was photographed by a young fledgling photographer named Jack Nebel, later to become Long John Nebel of the radio fame and Candy's husband. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention Candy Jones. She was pretty tall for a woman, around 6'1". Pretty remarkable. Let's see. She was voted Model of the Year in 1943 because, according to Loretta Young, one of the judges, you look like a real girl with a sunburned face, not at all like a model. All in all, things were good professionally. They were not so good personally. Candy's mother moved to New York, and they shared an apartment on the Upper East Side. Her mother's nerves, so controlling in Candy's childhood, continued to dominate her existence as a young adult. She She was incapable, even with maturity, of fighting her mother's domination, and she chose instead to run from it. At the time, 1944, the avenue of escape she chose a USO tour of the Southwest Pacific to entertain war-weary GIs, did not represent escape to her. It is only in recent years that she has realized in retrospect that her true motivations were, particularly her decision to extend her 6-month tour to almost 18 months. She traveled to the Pacific War Zone, and is so especially written for her, Cover Girls Abroad, which was listed as Captain Candy Jones until an altercation with a general resulted in a demotion to lieutenant. She did not travel to the Pacific as a stranger to the troops. In addition to the ubiquitous polka dot bikini pin-up, another photograph of Candy in a floor-length gown made of parachute nylon was equally popular, perhaps receiving greater barracks exposure because the chaplains preferred his relative modesty to the bathing suit shot. She was also the model used in the official recruiting posters for the WACS and the Waves. I was very comfortable performing in the show, says Candy. I just finished 8 months in Broadway in Mike Todd's show, Mexican Hayride, and then to mind the rigors of a hectic show business schedule. We broke in the show at Fort Dix, New Jersey, Cherry Point, North Carolina, Fort Benning, Georgia, and in a number of veterans hospitals. It was like breaking in a Broadway show in Boston and Philadelphia. For us, Broadway would be New Caledonia, New Guinea, late in the Philippines. We had to be good, because after every performance, the special service officers filed a report with the Army and the USO, theater critics in khakis. Candy's adventures in the South Pacific during World War II are fascinating and provide a substantial portion of the subject matter for one of 11 books written by her. The one titled More Than Beauty, published by Harper and Row in 1970. She loved the experience and basked in the freedom of being away from the New York apartment and a Conover agency. She met the challenges of performing in an alien climate and surviving away from the comforts of the States. In fact, she enjoyed the hardships and resulting need to live by her wits on a day-to-day basis. Hold on a minute. But there was little she can do to fight the combination of ailments that suddenly attacked her in April 1945 in Morotai. She enjoyed a quart of milk flown in from Australia by an Army Air Corps pilot, the first fresh milk she tasted since leaving the States. Sorry. Unfortunately, it was not pasteurized, as she developed a severe case of ungulate fever. At the same time, she contracted malaria, despite her daily intake of atabrine pills. Damn. Those two ailments were enough to convince her Special Services Officer Bill Tallman, who later appeared as a DA in the Perry Mason TV series, to put her into a field hospital in the Philippines. 2 days after checking into the facility and enjoying what she assumed were clean seats, she developed a contagious fungus, commonly referred to in that area of war as jungle rot. Jeez, one sickness after another. And that's why I'm very wary of traveling to foreign countries. They're not as clean as the place where I live at, which is on the moon. Jeez. Within a week, her hair had begun to come out in patches, coupled with a greenish yellow complexion. The loss of hair was not hardening to a woman who made her living as a model. A nurse finished the job by saving Candy's head, and medics worked to rid her of the malaria and ungulate fever. Candy became friends with a number of medics, including an officer we will call Gilbert Jensen, who gave her a picture of himself and wrote his military APO address on the back in the hopes he would write him, Within six weeks, he was feeling well enough to travel and accepted the invitation of a staff general to attend a theater opening in Manila. So he made some unofficial trips to that city after MacArthur had won it back and released the prisoners of war from Santo Tomas in February 1945. She eagerly accepted the general's invitation. She remained in the Southwest Pacific until August 1945. Then, with great ambivalence, boarded the Charles H. Muir and sailed home via the Panama Canal. It was another 8 months before her hair and skin were sufficiently restored to face a close-up camera. In the meantime, she accepted a role in a Broadway musical, Polonaise, based on the life of Chopin. In the show, she wore a wig to cover her wartime wounds, and heavy theatrical makeup to steal from the public the hue of malaria. And on July 4, 1946, she married her boss, Harry Conover. It was not a marriage made in heaven. Ooh. Dang, I need to take another water break. Excuse me. Don't be afraid to comment, Moonies. Alright, we're back. Woo! I really should drink before streaming, but I digress. Is orange juice with added sugar alright? I think it's okay, but I prefer drinking OJ just as is, and I don't have any orange juice with me. Oh, jeez. You know what? I should try drinking orange juice with egg again, just like I did last summer. But hey, let's continue. And damn, we hit the 1 hour and 15-minute mark. Woo! Way to go, Moonies. Woo! Alright, let's see. 2,000 people attended the wedding of Harry Conover and Candy Jones. It was held in a cathedral in Hamilton, Ontario, and Candy's wedding rings were red, white, and blue. Immediately after nuptials, the couple traveled across town to judge the Miss Canada contest. Canada was celebrating 100 years of progress. That evening, Candy put her mother on a plane for Niagara Falls, where Mrs. Wilcox had wished her daughter to spend her honeymoon. Instead, Candy and Harry stayed in Hamilton, while Mrs. Wilcox spent her daughter's honeymoon in America's traditional honeymoon haven. The newlyweds occupied a presidential suite in Hamilton's finest hotel. Ooh, fancy. Let's see. It was a warm, listless night, and as Candy sat in a window and listened to the sounds of a carnival band as it performed in the park across the street, fireworks from the park snapped through the humid air and caused her to wince. Her husband was asleep. He had told her he loved her during a telephone conversation prior to the wedding. "Do you love me now?" she asked him that afternoon as they drove from the beauty pageant to their hotel. "As much as I can," he answered. But don't pin me down. Nothing is forever. I don't like to be tied down. What's the point of marrying? Jeez, I thought the 1940s and 50s was based and traditional. Sit. But I digress. You know, it's pretty weird. I mean, a model and her model agent husband managed to rent a presidential suite for their honeymoon. Can you guys sense the government connections? Like, really? It's like I said earlier, there must have been some MK Ultra mind control Abuse. It must have occurred. Definitely. Let's see. Candy stayed awake the entire night. They flew to New York the next morning and moved into his apartment. We consummated the marriage sometime between the wedding day and Christmas, Candy says. It didn't matter. At first, I wanted to be held and caressed. Harry didn't like that, and I soon didn't care one way or the other. Candy Jones was a disappointment to Harry Conover. For one thing, he disliked her relatively large bosom, preferring more boyish women. Fag. What a fag. What a yes, please, MacLord, please clip it. Yeah, I know there are guys out there who love slender women, but really, what guy doesn't like breasts? A woman's breasts. Okay? C's. I bet he used Candy Jones as a beard. What a fag. What a fag. Your large bosom is revolting, he told her. Fag. For another, she was a virgin. I don't want to bring in a virgin, he proclaimed. Man, cease. What kind of gay shit is this? Man, that kind of pisses me off. Cease. Well, it's no surprise that Harry Conover would be gay. After all, he works in a modeling agency. Cease. And how come he doesn't like virgins? Like, what the fuck is wrong with him? 6 months after their marriage, Candy Jones opened her own offices next door at 52 Vanderbilt Avenue. She left the Conover agency because some of the other models began to complain that she was receiving favored treatment from her husband. When John Powers heard of her move, he invited her to work for him. But though she wanted to accept his offer, she felt it would be disloyal to Harry. Instead, she continued to serve those clients for whom she worked as a model, and also developed new business for her enterprise. Her most impressive new account was Colgate Palm Olive. But Harry wanted the prestige of that account for his agency. Candy serviced the account, but all billings went through the Conover Group. The same arrangement held for other prestigious accounts that followed. 3 sons were born during the 13 years of their marriage: Harry, Carrie, and Chris. And I hope they weren't molested. 2 subsequent pregnancies were aborted. Oh no. On Harry Conover's insistence. Of course, what a fag. Oddly enough, Harry also insisted that Candy pay all the medical bills for the birth of her 3 sons herself, from her own earnings. Man, you can tell this is a fag in the closet. Like, shit, I want to punch this nigga. Seriously. As the marriage declined from the low point from which it had started, Harry spent less time at home. When he was there, he spent hours in the bathroom, temper flaring if anyone questions him about this habit. Most nights he was out with the boys. We've all seen this coming. Come on. I didn't realize that Harry Conover was bisexual until we've been married 12 years, says Candy. And he's probably like boy dick and trans girl dick too. Ugh. That may sound naive, and perhaps it was, But once our relationship became one of simply sharing living space, I didn't much care that he almost never made sexual advance towards me. In fact, I was relieved, thankful. The only time he came into my bedroom with those intentions was after he'd been drinking heavily. Woo! Well, Candy, I'm glad you didn't get an STD. Seriously, study shows that bisexual men are more likely to pass on a sexually transmitted disease onto their female partners. Really? Alright, let's see. Candy's mother was aware that all was not well within her daughter's marriage, but assigned the wrong reason to it. She constantly told Candy that Harry was running around with glamorous women. It was easy to come to this conclusion. Conover was a charming gentleman and enjoyed being in the company of beautiful females. His manners were exquisite, and he had an infectious laugh and keen wit, attributes that had attracted Candy to him in the first place. That and a desperate need for approval from a man of Conover's stature. Since Candy grew up fatherless. Poor girl. And why did Conover marry her in the first place? Seriously. She viewed him as a father, and when he proposed shortly following a divorce, Candy was flattered, thrilled, and somewhat dazzled. But Conover's real pleasure in life came from the ego-boosting attention of his many male friends. No surprise from a faggot. He spent entire nights on the telephone, and his monthly restaurant bills often ran as high as $1,000. He entertained anyone who came close to him, including waitresses, bartenders, and hat-check girls. He adored attention, often at the expense of his wife. Moreover, on more than one occasion, according to Candy, he smuggled male friends into his bedroom and hid them in a closet while he made sexual overtures to Candy. Ew! Ew! Do you know the implication of that? Ew! I detested our marriage, says Candy, but I adored the 3 beautiful, loving sons that resulted from it. They became my life, and I didn't care whether Harry Conover even existed. On May 18th, 1958, Conover disappeared. Good riddance. I did all the usual things a wife would do when her husband has disappeared, says Candy. I checked the hospitals and the morgues, and eventually reporting him missing to the Missing Persons Bureau of the New York City Police Department. I didn't hear a word from him until August. Conover's disappearance was news in New York. Once the word got out, Candy isn't sure where he initially went to, so effectively vanished. But he eventually took a suite in the Plaza Hotel. The suite was the scene of nightly parties and included 2 teenage models who worked for Candy. Oh, really? Conover had always enjoyed young girls, and Candy sensed it. She was only 21 when they married, but discovering that 2 teenage models with whom she so diligently worked were engaged in raucous parties hosted by her husband was a bitter blow. To add insult to her injury, Conover sent a friend to his offices over a weekend and cleaned out all of the furniture, which he used to furnish an expensive East Side apartment where he continued to live the high life. So Harry Conover is a closeted gay who chose Candy as some sort of beard, and most likely for fame. He brought in guys. He didn't spend much time with his sons. And for some reason, he was also a pedophile who hung out with teenage girls. What kind of fucked up gooner mentality is that? And also, please clip that. If you don't, then I will. Alright. But as painful as the blows to her heart might have been, it was the series of financial blows to her head that drew the most blood. Conover had wiped out their joint bank accounts, including a savings account in which $125 of Colgate-Palmolive fees had been deposited. Candy didn't know this until Conover's departure. She hadn't made a withdrawal from that account in 13 years of marriage, and hadn't even checked the account's balance during that time. Instead of seeking professional help, immediately, the accountants and lawyers for their businesses were Conover confidants. She made a series of unilateral decisions that proved disastrous. She willingly assumed all debts of the Conover agency out of an admirable albeit misguided sense of duty, and even signed a new lease on his offices, which came due shortly after his departure. When she did finally get around to checking her resources, she discovered she didn't have any. The joint savings account in which the Colgate-Palmolive money had been deposited had a grand total of $36. Damn. Conover visited his offices only once again, and that visit came as a shock to Candy. She was conferring in the office with 3 attorneys, 2 of whom were counsel to the business, the other retained by Candy for her personal legal problems. When the door opened and Conover walked in, as confident as well dressed as ever, it was the first time Candy had set eyes on him in slightly over a year. His timing, usually flawless, was slightly off that day. However, at the very moment of his arrival, Candy and the attorneys had been discussing plans to sue for divorce on the basis of abandonment. Based. Exactly. Sue that motherfucker. There will also be legal judgments brought against Conover for the Colgate-Palmolive money and for the back alimony and child support. Those lawsuits made headlines in New York, and the legal battle was long and bitter. The 3 boys, all in private schools, were kept out of the fray as much as possible. Finally, the courts handed down their various rulings, and Harry Conover was sent to Hart Island for a prison sentence of 2 years. It was pay or go to jail, and he spent every cent he'd taken with him. Their marriage had been dissolved and resolved. The emotional war was over, the battlefield clear for whatever would come next. I was relieved to settle it, Candy says, but then I faced the ultimate truth about my situation. I was not only broke, I owed what seemed like everybody in town for Harry's other debts, and my own. My son's tuitions were big, I had my mother to support, I had a business that needed bailing out if it was to have a chance to grow in the future. I really didn't know what to do. I hated to admit it, but I was afraid and desperate. Oh, jeez. Alright, we reached the hour and 1.5 mark. Do you have any comments before I move on to the next chapter? I need to take a water break. Seriously, speaking for such a long time kind of dries up my throat. Anyway, be right back. Alright, hey Moonies, we're back. Woo! Alright, let's see. Let's see. Chapter 7, The Setup. Katie continued to run her school, and the remains of the Conover agency, from the separate Conover offices at 52 Vanderbilt Avenue. There wasn't much progress, he says, just a daily finger in the dike operation. Hehe. Double entendre. The offices occupied most of the 8th floor. The school actually a series of individual rooms, 807 through 812 for group makeup, private makeup, consultation, drama lessons. France, Nguyen, Julia Mead, Leslie Paris, Joy Bulifante, and Sandra D were among her students. Hairstyling, closed-circuited television. Hers was the first agency to use this technique. And wardrobe storage. Candy spent most of her time in room 808, a huge office across from the office that was leased to the former heavyweight champion of the world, Gene Tunney. According to Candy, Tunney was a very private man, and all of the years they spent across the hall from each other resulted in little more than casual pleasantries. Tunney did not seem to be conducting a business from the office, and Candy surmised that he used it as a convenient location from which to handle his personal investments. Woo! Hope you're back. Unlike Candy, who conducted classes for her students on Tuesday and Thursday nights, Tunney seldom spent evenings in his office. She never knew when he arrived and departed because he kept the door to her office open when she was there, day and night. Tunney's office door, like all the others in the building, had 2 large panels of thick, opaque, waffle glass, through which indistinguishable shadow figures could be seen. Probably government workers, like the FBI, or the OSS, which was a prototype of the CIA. Alright, let's see. Candy often saw Tunney move within his office, or at least a silhouette large enough to have belonged to his bulky fighter's frame. One Tuesday night at around 7:30, Candy was sitting in her office when she noticed a middle-aged woman approach Tunney's door. The woman was dressed like any of the cleaning women in Manhattan office buildings, including those at 52 Vanderbilt. House dress, apron, and cardigan sweater. Candy knew them all, but this woman of average height and weight, with short brown hair, was an unfamiliar face. Candy's curiosity was not unduly piqued. However, when the woman began going through a series of keys, in an attempt to open the door, all of the other cleaning women had a single master key attached to a rope around their waist. The woman eventually found the right key and entered the office, closing the door behind her. Candy waited for the lights to go on. They didn't. There was an erratic flash of light which Candy assumed was the beam of a flashlight. She was faced with the decision we all face in such a situation. Do we interfere and perhaps be made to look foolish? A student interrupted Candy's thoughts. When she returned her attention to Tunney's office, the woman was closing the door behind her and heading up the hall. Candy never gave it another thought until she heard through the building grapevine the following afternoon that Gene Tunney's office had been burglarized. Ooh, scandalous. Did they take much? She asked him in the hallway. No, some stamps, petty cash, nothing important, Tunney replied. Candy told him about the strange cleaning woman, and he said he will relay that information to the police. She also told the building superintendent about the woman, but didn't hear from anyone, including the police. 2 nights later, Thursday, she was sitting in her office when a young couple approached Tunney's door and stopped in front of it. The young man took out keys and began trying them in the lock. Candy went into the hallway and approached them. We're supposed to meet Mr. Tunney here, the young man said. He's not in, Candy replied. I saw him leave hours ago. The young girl appeared flustered and urged the young man to leave by pushing him in the direction of the elevators. Candy watched them get out an elevator, then she returned to her office. She mentioned the couple to Tunny the next day. Oh, really, was his response. A week later, while returning to her offices from a morning meeting across town, Candy was stopped in front of her building by an old friend from the South Pacific, a retired Army general. She run into him around Manhattan a few times before, and he was never, as he put it, overly friendly towards me. They entered the building together and took the elevator to the 8th floor, where the general mentioned he was having lunch with Jean Tunney. Candy took him into her office and showed him around. When they crossed the hall and said hello to Tunney, who Candy recollects seemed quite surprised that she knew the general, the men left for lunch, and Candy went about the afternoon's business. Does anyone notice the governmental connections surrounding Candy? I mean, come on. I mean, the generals, Harry's connections to the government, the presidential suites, like, it has MKUltra written all over it. But let's continue. Let's see. She was visited in her offices within a few days by a young man who introduced himself as an FBI agent. The identification he offered confirmed this fact. She recalls only his first name, Ted. Ted Bundy? Ted Kaczynski? I'm just joking. But I would like to say serial killers of the 60s and 70s, they were connected to the government. Really, in an underhanded business. And I'm pretty sure you guys know the story of Ted Kaczynski. Poor guy, rest in power. He is the real American influencer. There's also Ted Kennedy. There's so many Teds affiliated with the government. Woo! Alright. He asked her about the burglary of Jean Tunney's office, and Candy told him what she had told Tunney and the superintendent. He listened dutifully, but after hearing what she had to say, he dropped the subject. Instead, he commented about a microphone that was sitting on a window ledge. It's a very good microphone, Candy told him. I brought it from Alan Funt. Funt had produced Candid Microphone, the audio forerunner of his television version, Candid Camera. Funt was in the process of buying new tape equipment and had sold Candy two of his old machines, both excellent recorders. He included the sale of two microphones, one of which was being admired by the FBI man. What do you use it for, he asked. For training my models. If they don't develop pleasing speech, they can lose a lot of assignments. Alright. The FBI man went to the window and picked up the microphone. This may seem a silly request, he said, but would you allow me to borrow this microphone? Why? He explained that he was involved in a long-term surveillance on West 57th Street and had not been able to procure that specific type of microphone, which he claimed was of a quality necessary to do the job right. Very suspicious. Alright, hold on a minute. Ugh. Alright. Even after he warned her that he might need it for as long as 2 months, she had others she could use during that time. And frankly, she found the idea of having one of her microphones used by the FBI in an official case intriguing and satisfying. The FBI man thanked her and departed with the microphone. About a month later, he returned with it. There was another young man with him, who was introduced to Candy as also being with the Bureau. The three of them sat and chatted for half an hour before Ted made another request of her. Would you allow us to have some mail delivered here? He asked. Would that upset you? Candy asked what he meant. We need a location in which certain letters could be delivered to us. Very suspicious. Chat, never listen to a Fed. Don't take advice from a Fed and run him over with your car. Just like Terry Davis always said. Woo! In Minecraft. Yeah, Minecraft. Ooh, the nigger cattle. Ooh, the nigger cattle. Cattle. Nigger cattle. Ah, jeez. Rest in power, Terry Davis. You too. I hope you're chilling in heaven with God, creating OS version 1000. OS Temple. Alright. Alright, Candy agreed that there was always a heavy volume of mail having to do with the business, as well as mail sent to the models in care of the agency. The FBI man explained further. There would be letters addressed to fictitious names in care of the agency, and once a month a man would stop by and ask for mail addressed to those names. All Candy had to do was give him the letters. In addition, there might be mail from Europe addressed to her, or to a designated fictitious man's name. In that case, she was to call a number that would give her and report the arrival of such mail. I'd be happy to help, said Candy. Very suspicious. Very. Gene Tunney moved from his office 2 weeks later and took space at 200 Park Avenue, but the retired Army general kept in touch with Candy during the period of time her offices were being utilized as a mail drop. Almost a year. He began inviting her to cocktail parties hosted by him and his wife, and she received a Christmas card from him that year for the first time. In the late summer of 1960, Candy received a letter at her apartment at 1199 Park Avenue. It was from Ted, and was written on plain white typing paper. All it said was that she should expect a call within a few days. The call came to her apartment 2 days later. It was the general. She said she couldn't speak with him at the moment. Her mother was in the room, and Candy somehow knew without benefit of instructions that whatever the phone call was about should remain secret between her and her caller. Ah, jeez. The general called her office the next day. I understand you're taking a trip, he said. He was referring to plans Candy had for the week before Thanksgiving. She was going to Denver to speak to the Tuesday night supper club. On the one evening a year, the all-male club's members were allowed to bring female companions to the dinner. And then on to San Francisco, where she was to be the commentator at a fashion show jointly sponsored by 3 of San Francisco's leading department stores. Since you're going to California anyway, would you mind carrying a letter to be delivered to someone out there? Ooh. Oh no. Don't do it, Candy. Don't. What letter? Are you sending it? It's a letter for a government agency, Candy. All you have to do is deliver it to a man who will call you at your hotel. You're staying at the St. Francis, right? That's right. Will you do it? Yes, I'll do it. How will I get the letter? It will be delivered to you. By the way, I think you'll enjoy seeing the man in California. I believe you know him. What's his name? Mr. Jensen. I don't know any Mr. Jensen. Well, maybe not. Thank you, Candy. The letter arrived in a large envelope at her offices 3 days before she was to depart on her trip. Attached to a smaller envelope, inside a larger one, was a note instructing her to take the letter with her and wait for a call at the hotel. It was signed Ted. Ah, jeez. Don't trust any Teds in government? Really? Ah. Her appearance in Denver went smoothly, and she flew on to San Francisco, where she conferred with the facet coordinators from the 3 stores. On the 3rd day, which according to the best information I've been able to piece together, was Wednesday, November 16th, 1960, Candy received a call at the St. Francis. I hope you guys are hearing me, chat. Candy, this is Gil Jensen, the caller said. Candy rocked her brain for some time to link to the name, but came up empty. Remember me from the Philippines? I was a medic there. Oh, Dr. Jensen, of course. They chatted for a few minutes before Candy asked him if he was the one to whom she was to deliver the letter. We can talk about that over dinner, he said. They dined at the Mark Hopkins Hotel. Jensen's physical appearance had not changed much over the 15 years. A slight recession of the hairline had cut into his thick, curly brown hair, and a slight paunch had invaded his waistline. Although he carried the extra weight nicely on his 6-foot frame, he was dressed conservatively. Dark suit, white shirt, muted tie. The real change was in his personality. In late he'd been much more relaxed and jovial than he was as he sat across from her in a restaurant. At least that was Candy's perception of his personality then and now. He was pleasant enough as they discussed names and places from the past, in their respective lives since the war. Jensen told her he was in private practice in Oakland, across the bay from San Francisco. Candy brought up the letter a few times, but Jensen parried those mentions by suggesting that they could talk better at his office the following day. I plan to go back to New York tomorrow, Candy said. I think it would be worthwhile staying, said Jensen. There's some interesting work you could do for the Central Intelligence Agency, Candy, without interfering with your business. It could be lucrative. Oh, shit. I called it. CIA operative MKUltra business. Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah, geez. Got the sniffles. Alright. That was the beginning. Candy stayed and was driven in a plain, dark sedan the following morning across the Bay Bridge to Oakland into the office of Dr. Gilbert Jensen. What was to occur in that office that day and on subsequent days over the next 12 years launched Candy Jones on an adventure that would lead her to the Far East as a covert operative of the CIA. She would be harassed, badgered, and even tortured. Her role was a carrier of messages, and the fact that she chose innocently to perform such duties for pay renders the misfortunes that befell her. The misfortunes that befell her occupational hazards. What she didn't bargain for, however, was becoming a human guinea pig in a secret CIA scientific project in which mind control was the goal. She was an unwilling and unknowing laboratory subject for 12 years, and only the chance marriage to John Nebel saved her from the final stage of her adventure and of the experiments performed upon her. Her own suicide as choreographed by Dr. Gilbert Jensen. Oh, shit. So the government was going to program her to commit suicide? Oh, shit. Oh, geez. I fucking called it. MKUltra mind control. And keep in mind, Ted Kaczynski was also an unwilling participant of the experiments. And look what happened to him. Let's see. Well, this is chapter 8. The triangle emerges. Moonies, I'm sorry, but it's getting a bit late. It's my fault for streaming this so late in the night. But nevertheless, I had a fun time reading to you. And I hope you had a good time with this stream as well. And we've almost hit the 2-hour mark too. So yay. Yay for us, Moonies. And don't worry, I'll change the title too. Well, guys, do you have any questions, any comments, any statements? What do you think about the story so far? Honestly, it's very enthralling and I love it. GG Muchan, you gotta get some Z's. Get some Z's. Well, thank you, Smack Lord. Thanks, dude. And I hope you have a good day too, bruh. So, well, my dear Moonies, make sure you follow us on Twitch and on our main channel on YouTube called Moonlight Artist. Let's see, Smacklord, I know much of this story. What the year of this? Okay, so this takes place around the 1970s. No, wait, it takes place between, like the 1940s to the 70s. It's a biography of Candy Jones. Poor woman. Ah, geez, I feel sorry for her. But you know what? There's another book written by another MKUltra victim. I think her name was Kathy Gibbs. See, not only was she a victim of MKUltra mind control, but she was prostituted by her mother and sexually abused as a child by governmental figures. Hell, even Hollywood actors too. But hopefully I'll get that book in the future. I just have to remember when it is. Anyway, Moonies, also follow us on Twitter. We have an Instagram, a Facebook for the Boomers, and TikTok for the Zoomers. We even have a Telegram for the Edgelord Doomers. And we also have a Discord to hang out with too. Hey, Smacklord, is there any reason why do you have a Discord account? Just curious. Anyway, also follow all of our channels. Moonlight Gaming, Moonlight Live, and Moonlight Manga too. We love you, Moonies. Well, make sure you join us tomorrow. We'll be reading a different book, as well as Friday and Saturday. We're gonna continue streaming this week. Woo! So we love you, Moonies, and see you on the other side of the moon. Bye, niggas.